All right, folks, welcome on back here for another fantastic edition of our Traders Talk workshop. Once again, back here this August 15th, Tuesday. Every Tuesday, we conduct Traders Talk after 11 o'clock Eastern Time. Great to see all of our students and members here inside our live trading room first. Xavier, Ryan, Egan, Brian, Rod, Chuck, Grant, and a full house just before. We had Leda, John, Barbara, Kathleen, Brian, and a few more of us. Lawrence, my friend Lawrence, who joined me on the DCTH trade. Great to see all of you there. Great to have us back, perhaps on social media, Facebook Live, LinkedIn, Twitter, YouTube, etc. Any of our new attendees joining myself right now, my name is Josh Levitan. I'm Fausto, senior instructor here at Cyber Trading University. And here, every Tuesday morning at 11 o'clock or shortly after, we conduct our Traders Talk workshop. This is really the only outlet inside our live trading room as for us explaining why we're doing what we're doing and how we're doing it all. In fact, the mechanics of getting in a trade, the mechanics of building up a watch list, right? I'll tell you what, in fact, this morning on the audio broadcast, I don't mean to sound like a jerk. I don't mean to sound brash or blunt, but hey, inside our live trading room, we can't just be calling out this stock, that stock, right? It's going to overwhelm Egan. It's going to overwhelm Phil. It's going to overwhelm Brian, John, Kathleen, Grant, Ravina, and the 112 of us inside our live trading room now. There is a reason why Fausto, for 35 years of experience himself, and now myself going on 10, why each and every morning, why we are building up these watch lists and we're sticking to them to begin. We're sticking to them. We're not just jumping around as soon as the market opens up and calling out this stock. We lose track of what we're focused on to begin with here. For instance, of course, IONQ is flying up now. We'll perhaps come back to this trade, for mid-morning. This came out of left field, out of nowhere. I wrapped up a coaching call with one of our students, Roberto, and we finished up on DCTH. And we left off on that and said, wow, we missed out on this mover on IONQ. You never know what could pop up during the middle of the day, folks. But actually here, let me ask all of us inside our live trading room. Just honest question, just survey question here. When do you get to the Cyber Group room each and every day? When do you open up your platform each and every day and join us here in the Cyber Group trading room? Let me know. When do you join us each and every morning, or day, rather? Try to correct myself saying day instead of morning, because of course we all should be here in the morning. I was leading us to kind of just say generally, when do we get here? But pretty much all of us are saying around 7:45 to 8 o'clock Eastern time, some earlier, some later, but generally we're all here before the market opens up, right? We're all here before 9:30. We're all here before 9 o'clock Eastern when myself or Fausto are doing the meetings here, right? Which means that you're at your desk and you're looking at stocks like DCTH and asking, well, why is this up so much? And how could I jump in on this trade when the time is right, whether it be pre-market here as you see, or, well, now this thing is off and running. It has been. This has been a crazy volatile stock from the get-go, folks. So really quick, for Ray and Charles, Roseanne, great to see her here, and Steve and John and all of us here. Who here is currently in on this trade? We're not like trading live right now. We have to go back on this whole move from the morning, explain to students like Rick and Ira and a lot of our newly enrolled students here why we were so focused on this compared to everything else. Is anyone currently in on this trade? Xavier just got out, so I'm sure he took some good money. And Rick in on this trade right now. All right, so I'm going to try and talk as best as I can here, meaning quickly and efficiently with just, showing you what happened, because this is a live move right now. This is still going to move as we continue this conversation. So bear with me, folks. Let's start really from the beginning here in pre-market. Just from the beginning here in pre-market. This thing had a big pop. Actually, I might even take us. Nope, won't take us to this morning pre-market, not the after hours. But 4 a.m., this thing popped early. Okay, well, our whole philosophy at Cyber Trading University is to follow the big money, right? Look for the iceberg orders, know where the big buyers and sellers are out there. In fact, our philosophy is really to just not follow the news and specifically. We're not buying and selling because of news that's coming out. Hell, if I did that more often than not, I wouldn't be here because I'd be poor and I'd be, I'd have my account blown up if that's all I did. So that's where I could tell you that, hey, we're following this stock today because it was trending up going into the 8 o'clock hour in pre-market. It was showing good movement on the way up. And we have a question from one of our students, Lawrence, in regards to trends. So we'll get to that too. But let's talk a little bit about the news for a moment. I rarely ever care about the news, truly. Fausto as well. What's the news out on this stock, though, just for reference? So DCTH shares trading higher. Here's the news report. After the company announced FDA approval, blah, 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 blah. A bunch of words I can't pronounce. I mean it. But the key word there, key phrase is FDA approval. Now, I'm no pharmacist. I have no experience with drugs or any of that, pharmacy and all that. But it's to tell you this, from my experience of doing this each and every day for nearly 10 years now, well, there's three major phases or steps towards FDA approval. And it's pretty damn rare that a company gets actual FDA approval. You might hear a headline from them saying, oh, we passed phase 1 secondary trials. That's a great headline in terms of just the day trade. We'll day trade a stock off of any sort of news out there, regardless of pharma or not. Well, with pharma, even phase 1 news, that's like a headline, the beginning of the process of getting FDA approval. That alone could lead to an explosive pop. That alone could lead to a stock to move up like 40, 50, 60%. Well, after phase 1, there's phase 2. It's kind of like our stock trading course, folks, right? So, phase 2. And then after phase 2, there's phase 3, the primary and secondary trials there. It's a long-winded process to get to this point. So I'm not going to sit here and dig through every headline over the last few years that we might have on DCTH, because if I were to go through, I'm sure I'd find some, follow-up here, at least from a month back or a few months back or a year back on their drug. I'm not doing that here, because now at this point, all I care about is this right here, FDA approval. So that leads me to feel more bullish, because it's not as often that we tend to get this. Doesn't mean I'm just going to jump into the trade to jump into it, right? Doesn't mean I'm just going to jump in because of the news. Hell, this stock was up big in pre-market. It was up like 90+% in pre-market or so. Well, normally, if you're up 90% overnight on a stock, I'd imagine that you'd look to sell and take your money when the market opens up. So normally, just point being going towards the opening bell here, that's exactly what happened. It popped up at first, but then it crashed right back down. Profit taking for a stock that's up 60, 70, 100, of course, a hell of a lot more than that percent, we should expect the pullback. So in my head this morning, I was looking for support. Let's get to the levels right now and see actually where the big money was trading at on this move. So, I was shouting this out all from the morning during our audio commentary, but it's hard to go into why I was shouting out what I was shouting. So this ended up leading to a nice pop. It ended up breaking out just shortly after 8 o'clock in the morning. Bear with me for a split second, folks. Just one little thing here. There we go. All right, so if you could focus on this column here on the far right side, the delta column. I'll explain what this means in just a second, but generally speaking, what price on that far right column, the delta, do you see the big green volume bar? The big green bar, or if there is a price that correlates to where that big green volume bar is on the right side, what price could you give that? Leda Brian saying 550. No, we're focused on the delta column here, folks, on the far right where it says delta, not COB. Their right was saying that there's 24,712 shares on the bid at 550. But where do we have a big green spike on the far right side, the delta column? 585. We're all saying roughly at 585, like in between 80 and 90. Okay, 585. Well, in pre-market here, there was actually a pretty large print that got filled. This is at 8:15 in the morning. It's about 78, 79,000 shares. We'll round up a penny, so we'll say it's filled at the price 585. So early this morning, folks, really quick, actually, I'm going to do it on this computer. Bear with me for a split moment here. So I want to show all of our members inside our live trading room how you yourself could look to go back on all of these call outs that we make throughout the day. Myself, Rich, Fausto, when he's here. And, part of that is the search tab just inside our live trading room. So early this morning, we were harping on the fact that, hey, if this wants to remain a good trade, this needs to hold over 585 here, in fact. So actually really quick, this is our live trading room right now, folks. So you could see as early as like 585 at 8:33 in the morning, I wrote, ideally want to see DCTH hold over 585, right? 8:33 in the morning that was. Well, why at that time? Because, well, it broke out pretty nicely here. So, for as much as it ran up and up and up and up, it might continue to keep running up. If it doesn't, where could we find support? I would say right here, 585. So that was called out at the time, 8:33 in the morning. Let's show you what happened there at that point because, well, here's 8:33. It already hit it once. Surprisingly, it crashed into it and held it a second time. And really, throughout the majority of the pre-market here leading into the open, what an absolute job that this was doing, holding support right over that big level. So, hey, we always tell our students here, like, it's better to have Bookmap, better to have level 4 than to not have it. And, the longer you're here and you're not using it, it's kind of like you're wasting your time because majority of us have it. Majority of us have this here, right? So I'm not necessarily speaking to those students that have Bookmap because, well, you should have been able to see the green dot that came in there. Or, otherwise you could see from the CVP as it zoomed in, like, oh, a big spike here at 85, right? Even if you don't have the delta, you could see that there was big volume filled here at this point, right? All right, well, it became a really strong chart level. If you don't have Bookmap, then you should know that this was a damn strong chart level, if anything, prior to the open. So we were really like harping on 585 as a key level going into the open, a key level. Now, let me show you the full heat map here. And, it's not just 585 because, well, hey, when the market opened, it smashed under this, right? Smashed under 585 and crashed. Give me a quick moment here, folks, if you may. So right here, let's see. When the market opened up, I'll show this on Bookmap too. Your opening bell print was at 586, just a penny off. So I'll show that on the heat map coming up. That's the big opening bell print that we often focus on. Well, over time, I said here at 9:45 in the morning, DCTH has support, 535 to 540. It needs to hold over. All right, well, let's jump to that next. So why was I calling out 535? Why was I calling out 540? So underneath 585, that is, it's a little rugged, kind of tough to see where like the really big levels are. You want to focus on the dark orange and red lines that are out there for a long while, for a longer period of time. So here's one at 540, right? And it looks like this breaks over 540 and then it runs off of it, right? So it seemingly broke resistance and then it ran off of resistance. From Margaret, Rod, Ryan, Sam, Sydney, and all of us here, I ask this every week in Traders Talk. When a stock breaks above resistance and it runs off of it, we'd like to think that initially resistance should create what? All right, so support, right? Now, in my head, I'm not always right with this because we're human beings and sometimes we miscalculate by a penny or two or a few. I said 535 to 540, right? So I was looking at that iceberg. I was also looking at this little chart level here. It's just a chart level. It wasn't really built off of big volume, but wow, it topped off here at 6:30 in the morning at 535. It topped off here at 7:10 in the morning at 535. And then it broke over it here, right? It broke over it, and there was really no looking back from 35. It held above 40 before it ran higher. When it breaks above resistance and it runs off of resistance, we would like to think that initially resistance could create. There we go. And my friend Lawrence got in on that trade with me right at that point, right at 540. Now, Lawrence, answer this for me, my friend, and all of us perhaps on top of Lawrence as well. When a stock breaks through a big level and we jump in, what are we expecting shortly after, folks? What are we expecting shortly after? Simply put, after a stock breaks through a big level and we jump in, we're looking for a big move, right? It's the same catchphrase each and every week. Now, of course, we're hoping for that big move to be in the upward direction, mind you. Well, even here, as much as I love the news, which I rarely could say, and as much as I had faith in the level, this stock could be like a low float piece of crap stock that just doesn't make that big illustrious pop that you want. It might just hold over 535 for like 10 minutes, 8 minutes. But if it's not making that big move that you're looking for, the probability of it making a big move the complete other way, it increases greatly. So as soon as I jumped in on this trade, I set my stop up under 535. I'm not going to risk much at all on the trade, but we're looking for that, proverbial big move shortly after. For a $5 stock, heck, if I can get like a 25, 30-cent jump here, it's not a big move, compared to everything else we see, but it's a great start. It's a great start that leads me to say, okay, well, let's keep seeing higher lows. Let's continue to see this trend up here at this point. So big shout out, actually. I know I mentioned it before, but one of our longtime students, Lawrence, he is really a good trader to begin with, like high strike rate with his trades, win-loss. Takes a lot of trades, but he's been trying to learn how to hold on longer to like a larger move, get more than like 10, 15 cents a pop. I think he got like 60 or 70 cents a share on this thing. Ended up making a much larger move up over time. This is where things get shaky, though. This is where things get dicey, where things get very shaky and volatile, because over time, yeah, it moved up higher, but holy smokes, did this thing shake. So we stomached one shakedown here. It pulled back. I got out, pardon me. I got out on, where was it? Yeah, okay, there we go. So I was getting out on my position over time here. I held through on the second half of my position until this point. I got out, Lawrence, in full on this trade from 540 entry. The last half of my position, I got stopped out right here. But as it was moving up at this point, I'm thinking all systems go. It broke back over 585 here. It's moving back up. Looks like it wants to pop higher. Do we have a clear resistance ahead? Well, you got a couple of 15,000, 19,000 here and there, but you got bigger resistance ahead at 750. So why can't this run higher right here? Well, it tries. It explodes up, obviously. This thing rips and runs up to 650. At this point in time, my feet are not kicked up. I'm not like kicking back right now, but I'm feeling really good. In from 540 and this thing's at 650, right? I mean, hey, if I lose a little profit and it drops off, so be it. Build higher lows and we'll see if it can keep popping up, right? Oh my God. What a brutal shake back down. And this is where I closed out the first quarter or even the first half of the position in full. I said, all right, well, I got to lock up some profit now and look to just get out. The last half I ended up getting out. It was later on here as it shook down, right? Now, here's the key, though. I don't want to just jump around too much on this, but if you have great faith, not just in a stock, because, hey, if you have faith in a stock and it's not making that move you're looking for it to make, then you're beating yourself into the ground and you're missing opportunities elsewhere. It's not just faith in the stock, it's faith in the level that you're seeing. Well, 585, 586 was a huge pre-market level. It was the opening print here too. So as I got shaken out on the last half of my original position, I didn't just move on to another stock. I mean, hey, if this just stopped me out here on the last half and then tanked all the way down to 520, I'm moving on. But if it breaks under here and then really struggles to break lower, well, it begs the question, what if it breaks through this big level again on the way up? So after I got stopped out on the second half of my original position, I waited and I wanted to see if this would jump back above this level. Folks, this could be all easy for me to recite and easy for you to listen to after this picture's already painted. But I shoot straight always, and there's times where I miss out on trades like this after the fact. I might be watching another stock, rightfully so, but if this goes without me, yes, it's a bad feel, right? So there are times where I step away and then like 5 minutes later, the stock I was originally looking at goes up without me. So if you were one of those traders that moved on afterwards and then it ran up without you, I get it and I understand. I understand. It happens to me. So what you want to focus on is not just the stock and jumping back in, but it's where's the big levels? Where are the key levels that this stock is trading? Well, obviously we were talking 585. Looking at the delta column, I have a question from Kathleen in the chat. Kath, I'll get to your question just coming up. Let's look at the delta at least. Once again, look at the delta column. What price has the big green spike on the delta column right now? Looking at this picture. Just looking at this picture. What do we got? I think it is unanimous. $6, right? Well, a whole number like 6, we should trust. We should. Well, this really makes it stand out, though. This is a ton of big buying at 6. So if you missed out on the 585 level here, once it breaks back through this level on the way up, that generates a great entry. That's what I took. Well, hey, what if this fails to run off of 585? Well, I have to be prepared for a stop out. There's a chance it pulls back and takes me out here. It did not. But the more times this cracks over 6, the more times that we keep seeing buying off of 6, I'd be led to believe that we're going to get a concise, decisive move. So let me ask here, I know we started Traders Talk at 11 o'clock, halfway through right now. Did anyone jump into this trade from $6, if not from 585 before? Again, we started Traders Talk at 11, but I was on a call with Roberto and like coaching call, and we were watching this together. I wrote it in the chat board, really right to all of us here. I said, Roberto and I are looking for a big move off of 6. If you weren't in from 585, 6 was the next major level. Now, again, though, hey, we're happy it worked out. Obviously, we're really in a good position now that it's already at 7. So I'm going to probably just look to take some money soon enough on this trade just to get out. Being in from 585, we're not trying to be perfect. We're just trying to be happy at the end of the trade. So, I could get out right now and I'll be happy. But you know what? In terms of strategy, it makes sense to hold on still for right now because we have resistance still at 750. It could test. It's coming off such rare news to see a stock come out with FDA approval. It completed all the trials, all the tests. So there is still legitimate reason to try and look for that better run, really. If you make 80 cents instead of $1, are you upset at the end of your trade? If you are, I think that you need to really adjust your, what makes you happy in life, because I'd say on 1,000 shares, being up $800 on a trade, it doesn't matter if it's 800 or 1,000 to me. That's some big money. Ryan says, got in at 610 as it's false breaking off of 6. Perfect. So wait a little bit more. So as long as it holds over 6, which obviously it did already, you're in a good position. So, over time, we'll see if this can keep pushing. But the name of the game is this, folks. It's always been the name. Is there a stock that's actively moving? Not just up percentage-wise, but showing trend. Really quick, if I could step away. The best decision I made this morning, folks, and the best decision you made this morning, I'm telling you, it wasn't trading DCTH. It was not making money on DCTH. It was running for the hills on this SCYX. This thing, and thankfully all of us wrote this. Yehuda, Jith, Ryan, all of us in the chat board. I asked this as we finished up, said, would you put this on our watch list? And every one of us wrote no. Obviously, I was teeing you up to say no. So, there's a reason I was asking that. But it's because of the trend. There is no trend here. There is no buying really here in the pre-market, at least over the last hour prior to the open. So that's where we begin, finding good activity. Is there a stock that's not just up percentage-wise, but it's showing an active move? I mean, hey, early this morning, although it didn't continue, at first, Nikola was a great stock after 8 o'clock, but then it died off, right? So from that point, if it's dying off, I'm not going to feel as good about it compared to something that was trending better the 15 or 30 minutes right before the market opens. Kind of answers Lawrence's question from email just before. But to go back to that DCTH trade at least, okay, well, hey, this was active in pre-market. It was moving in pre-market here. Where are the key levels? Let me ask us, folks, where is the first place that we should look in order to identify our key levels? Where is the first place that we should be looking in order to identify these key levels? Well, I love that Ryan and Sam wrote right away 50-cent intervals. So I'll tell you what, that's a correct answer. And I love when students write that answer. Those are where we assume big levels are. And honestly, that should come first. That really should come first. So correct to Sam and Ryan. Where should we be finding these big levels, though? Like where on the platform, where on our computer screen, as we have our platform up and other various programs that might start with the letter B, be on our screen. Level 3 and, well, Bookmap B, level 4. Level 3 and level 4, folks, always, every single time. So if there's a stock that you're interested in, all right, where are the key levels? Where are the big levels that the stock is trading off of? If you're identifying those beforehand, it's going to give you a much greater ability to react. But in the main, in the audio commentary this morning, as I'm making call outs at 585 and, specific prices, don't try and kill yourself worrying about this little move or this little price. Focus on what I'm calling out. Focus on what Rich is calling out in the chat board there, right? If we're calling out a specific price, odds are we're using it as a key level. Odds are we're using it as a key level, right? We're not just calling out a price to just call it out. So was 585 the perfect level at first? It was very strong in pre-market. It was actually pretty perfect in pre-market, but not all, to retract. Pretty much every level over time is going to become imperfect, meaning it's going to chop around that price over a period of time. I will just say straightforward, when it pulled back here on this shake, oh my God, that was nasty. So outside of the outlier here of this nasty ass shake, 585 still did a phenomenal job as being a big level, a clear level for you to enter off of. But after 585 was just the whole number level ahead at 6. And again, we said it before here, a big volume that was building off of $6 from the delta column here. And hey, green is what we nickname buying, right? So as you're looking at this, you say, well, what if this can test 6 again? Well, if it tests 6 again, we're seeing buying interest at least at 6. Well, our best entries to buy a stock are over the level, not at the level. So we want to see this break over 6, and then we're going to look to jump in. So even on my call with Roberto right before we started this traders talk, we were both, it's funny, we were both looking at this iceberg here. Looks pretty big, dark red. 605, that is $6.05, about 47,500 shares, right? Pretty big. I mean, dark red means it's a big level, very big. So, let's not let this go unnoticed. So before this ended up making its big pop over $6, here's an interesting little caveat to $6. So this is the delta column here in number form, not like bar form. Look at how big this number is right here, where my cursor is. That's 510,000 shares plus, not just of volume, that's 510,000 shares of green, of buying. So let me ask us here, what's bigger, 510,000 or 47,000? What's bigger? I think we know the answer, right? 510. So when I looked at this, it wasn't a guarantee that it's just going to break it and run, but I had more faith in this level given the discrepancy here. Look how big the buying is there. So it failed to break over it like several times beforehand. Don't let that intimidate you. Certainly not more than it should incentivize you and encourage you to at least try to take the trade. Again, if you set a tight stop, you're doing everything that you need to be doing to play defense. Every trade begins with the entry, and every entry begins with a big level. So as long as you have a good focus on where these big levels are beforehand, it gives you quite the ability to at least lock up some profit, some good money here. So even live as this is pulling back a small bit, it's pulling back down towards 650-ish. Definitely good timing to consider to take some profit here. How about this? I'll do just to make sure I'm on limit here. There we go. I clocked out just in full right here at 655. I'm not a fan of seeing this shake down as much as it is. So, hey, I'm in from 585. I'm happy with this right now just to make the money here at 6:56 or so. Once we finish up Traders Talk at 12 o'clock, I'll be on a couple more coaching calls throughout my afternoon. If, and that's always the key word, but if this ends up building support again, why would I not be interested in this trade, right? So I got a smile on my face, folks. See, it's to say, I don't care about getting out at the top. I'm extremely happy because my trades started from my entry point, and my entry point was built off of a huge level. So that's all that matters. Lee saying NASDAQ tells me I'm not eligible for level 4. That's on YouTube right now. Lee's actually one of our platinum students. He should be in our live trading room right now. Lee, level 4 is not through NASDAQ. And honestly, level 4 is a nickname that we give the following program, Bookmap. So I'd suggest for Lee or any of our actual students that should be in our trading room, just send me a follow-up email, Lee. Just ask me more about level 4 through email, and I'll send over all the information I have there for you. Got Black Beauty Machine on YouTube saying, amazing how the channels that give most info barely have any views. I'll tell you what, Lee, our Black Beauty, we are building up our YouTube channel just over the last 6 months. So we've done great with growth, but all of our students and actual members that we train are inside our live trading room. If you want to join us just for a small week, we advocate for you to just scan that QR code on the top left of the stream, get you inside our live trading room with all of our students. But actually, that is great. That is a compliment, and I take it as such. Thank you very much. The channels that have the most info. I'll stop myself there at least. I appreciate that. Made my day. So with saying that, let's go through. I have to go through emails, folks. There were emails that were sent in as early as 8:15 this morning. I'm respecting those emails first and foremost because we always say send them in early. So let's actually jump back to Lee. Lee had a question. He did send this in early. So Lee, if you're tuning in on YouTube, either way, we're going to cover your question right now. Lee just had a question just in relation to shorting. So what a trade we had today. What a short trade we had today on SE. This stock was on our watch list. So right away, it was there for the taking. Hey, let me ask us here really quickly. What's the trend of this stock right before the market opens? From 8:30 to 9:30. What's the trend of this stock here? The question is not, is it up or down percentage-wise? Of course, this is down percentage-wise, but what's the trend? Well, the trend is as simple as you could see how much it's down by. It's just straight up down. This is trending down and down and down, leading into the market open. When a stock is trending down, folks, are we seeing more buying pressure or are we seeing more selling pressure? Of course, we're seeing more selling pressure. Where do we have a big level here in pre-market as this is dropping? As this is dropping on the way down towards the opening bell, where do we have a big dark red line? 45. So we had about 15,000 shares on the bid at 45. You know, it was holding above that price right before the open. To zoom in on this really carefully, it looks like it broke under 45 mere seconds before the opening bell. Normally, and pretty much as always, we wait the first 3 to 5 minutes before we actively jump into a trade. So truth be told, this breaks below 45 very fast and drops off right away. So if I was going to sink my teeth into this trade after the open, I shoot straight, folks. I'm not going to sit here and tell you that I definitely would have taken this at 45. More often than not, I'm waiting the first 3 minutes to 5 minutes before I'm proactively looking to take a trade. So what I could at least tell you here is, oh, that's actually pretty funky. Look at that. That's pretty interesting. Well, what I could at least tell you here is that after 45, what's our next big level of support under 45, folks? Where do we see an orange line for a longer stretch of time? For a longer period of time, where do we see an orange line go across the page? What do we got? You got one of us saying 44.50, two of us saying 44. What is the correct answer, folks? What do you think? Yeah, 44, I would say. It's out there just right before the open. It's there going into this break under the level. Okay. Well, hey, much like at 45, it crashed under 44 here. This is at like 9:33 in the morning, a little more appropriate timing. But the question is not a matter of is it going to break down at this time, but what happens if we keep seeing selling pressure at the same price? Meaning, much like we were talking about DCTH on the way up, with this trade on the way down, what happens if this keeps testing support? So earlier here, after the first 3 or so minutes, it shook back over 44. And then on the next break through that level, on the way down, right here, this generates a more acceptable short entry in terms of the timing of the day. I mean, hey, it's easy to say it dropped off right away, but that's not how we teach students why stocks moved. So based off what we go through normally in class, we are waiting the first 3 to 5 minutes. So that's where I truly say this could have been a much better timed entry if you're waiting a bit and as it breaks under this big level again, right? So it does make a great move. Now, over time, the same thing happens at 43, mind you. So if you missed it from this whole number at 44, it seems as if you have a similar style of entry later on here at $43. It broke under it once. This is a re-break. So it's on a retest or a re-break. You're looking for that more decisive, concise move. Here's a little interesting fact, though. Look at this. This is just little price action going on here. Look at this. This is a crazy stack of orders on the ask. They're not like big in terms of normally what we see, but in relation to everything else on the order book, it definitely was pretty large. I mean, this stack of orders on the ask, why is this here? What does this do? In the literal moment, I'd like to think it's going to push the stock down lower. Well, let's see what happened afterwards. Yeah, I'd say as soon as these orders started to appear as resistance, stacking up on each other, yeah, this came right back down. So, you might ask, why was that there? In the moment, we have to treat it as such. And after the fact, we'll study, what actually happened to the stock afterwards. So easy to say, but as soon as this stack of orders on the ask popped in, this came right back down. It broke under 43 and it kept going. It was a really great trade. So, just to at least mention to Lee, if my best entries to buy a stock are directly after it breaks through a big level on the way up, my best entries to short a stock are completely flip-flopped, vice versa. They're directly after the stock breaks through a big level on the way down. Really quick, for Ryan, Grant, Phil, Rod, all of us here, just trust our cyber clock. What time do we normally see reversals? What time do we see normally the momentum to die off in like the original trend the stock was going in? Generally speaking, what time we got? 10:15 to 10:30 says Ryan, 10:30 says Egan, Rod, Grant, Sam, all agreeing roughly 10:30ish, right? Okay, so, hey, if I'm trying to short this stock, I'm trying to short it directly after it breaks through a big level on the way down. Well, that doesn't mean for every single time a stock breaks through a big level on the way down that it's appropriate moment to jump in. Because normally around 10:15 to 10:30, we are expecting stocks to begin to flatten out or reverse. So for as much as this stock already dropped in pre-market and already dropped after the market opened up, you probably shouldn't expect just perfect continuation on the first break or whatnot. Hey, at this stage in the afternoon or going into the late morning, early afternoon now, well, it shook around this 41 level so much, the next whole number certainly looks like there's a ton of volume filled there, even from my level 3 program on TradeStation. So, hey, if this keeps testing 41 and breaking under it, I'm led to believe it's going to continue down. But this time of the day, and certainly going forward, it's best to just sit on your hands initially and then wait to see if the stock keeps offering you tests of the same price. So here, hey, this actually could begin to set itself up for a new short entry if it keeps nipping at 41 in the next 15 or so minutes. And, well, hey, the more times it breaks that level in a shorter concentration, it's going to lead to that move. Going back to DCTH here, the same thing effectively happened at $6 on the way up. Test, 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 bam. So, that's the same strategy I'd look for on that SE as a short, just on the way down. That's all. All right, we keep it going through email, folks. Question from Larry. I referenced this earlier, so from Larry, had a great question that came in. I just wanted to go over it here with him. So Larry asking, in the pre-market meeting, like the morning meeting at the end, I had commented about the trend between 8:30 to 9 o'clock, and actually I was referring to that SCYX there at the time, right? Crazy how a stock starts on the percent gainers list, and then honestly, it was down a decent chunk just up until this bounce. So certainly, trend had a large part to do with that. When a stock is up and it's like up percentage wise in the morning, we'd like to think there's a headline out with it, right? I mean, normally there is. Well, hey, even if there isn't, I'd like to think there's a reason why the stock is up X amount of percent, right? Doesn't guarantee me to think it's going to pop higher. And the part that allows me to kind of feel better or worse about what a stock will do is really the trend. So, what I like to ask to myself when I'm prepping up my mornings, and what I always go through in phase two, I do this in phase two class, folks, when I'm kind of doing the preparation class for the market open. Actually, I think that's actually coming up next week, this month in the August classes. Coming up on next Thursday and Friday, the 24th and 25th. We're going to do like basically mini phase three style classes there within the phase two course. So you're going to hear me really rip into this. What is the trend of this stock, the 40 minutes, the 1 hour right before the market opens? You might say down because of this drop here, and I understand if that's the case. I'm just saying from 8:30 into the market open, final hour prior to the open. I don't think a singular person here would say up. You might say down, you might say flat. I don't think a singular human being here is going to say up. And that leads me to say, well, why is it not moving up at all? One iota, one bit. Well, whatever the actual reason is, it's just for me to say, clearly, there's no real buying pressure on this stock based on the trend. Because if there was, it would be trending up more, wouldn't it? I mean, hey, going back to Nikola, we had it on our morning watch list because we're familiar with the stock. And there was a chance for this to try and move up higher. But after the initial run that this had, which looked great, mind you, what was the trend of this stock before the market opens? So, it was up percentage wise. Could it have popped higher? 100% it could have. Right? It's like kind of a weird saying, right? Because anything's possible. It's just that here, certainly the trend was more flat leading into the open. So I was more privy to follow the WLDS, the DCTH trade, just the stocks that were showing better activity leading to the opening bell. It's always important to me because, there's always going to be other stocks out there that move when the market opens. I'm probably wrong with the number on this, but I think there's like 33 or 34,000 listed tickers out there across the whole stock market. Folks, we're focused on like 5. We're focused on 5 of those 33,000, 34,000. So when I have other students this morning calling out stocks like NCLH moving, yeah, it's moving, but is it moving better than the others? No. Lyft had a small pop this morning. Is it possible if someone bought it in pre-market, it could have been good? Yeah, but again, there's other stocks that if we have more time to prep on, knowing exactly where the key levels are prior to all the craziness beginning at 9:30, those are the trades I'm going to feel more confident to risk thousands of dollars on the entry, however many shares I'm trading, whether it's like $5,000, $10,000 into the position. If it equates to 500 or 1,000 shares, I'm going to be more inclined to follow that stock since I'm more privy to knowing where those bigger levels are, where those larger icebergs are located, or otherwise the big prints like we saw in the DCTH at the opening bell at that 586 price, 585. There's always going to be stocks moving out there, folks. So for all of our students that are looking to go through our training and really, learn what we're preaching here in this room, we don't want everyone else to be overwhelmed if we start tossing out, different stocks in the room: AAL, Uber, GM, Ford, NEO, PLTR, SQ, AMD, NVIDIA. Notice I'm typing that in the chat board for all of us here live. Imagine you're here, you're seeing all these stocks being called out, which you do see because Fausto's on the microphone, I'm on the microphone, we're calling out different things at the same time. Well, hey, if you have Joe, Billy, Bob, Adam, Jane, I'm just making names up, mind you, but if everyone else starts tossing in tickers, isn't it that much more overwhelming? Doesn't it make it that much more confusing? Isn't it that much harder for you to feel confident with knowing what to trade, where to trade it, where to get in? Kind of a rhetorical question, right? Because the answer is yes. And I know that because I was in your shoes back on October 6th, 2014, when I first started here. So that's where I try and shout to you folks. Let's start and stick with the watch list. Let's just start with a couple. And then if those couple or few aren't making that big pop like you want, then you see what else is out there. See what else is on the list. See what else we're calling out then at that stage, myself and Fausto and Rich. But, hey, there's a process that we go through in order for you to be less overwhelmed and more on the ball with the trades we're looking at. I'm not going to be on the ball for every singular trade that we're calling out, and that's on our list. It's for the same reason I just mentioned to you. I'm just trying to contain myself to a smaller group out of those. So again, for this morning, I'm subbing in for Fausto today the whole way through, so I had barely any time to set levels up in total. But this morning, I was more inclined to follow the DCTH trade, the WLDS, and then myself, there was one other one, which I do want to go back on. I had a couple emails on this too. Tasha, TSHA. That was on our list too. That made a nice move to begin. But actually, that was one as well we'll look at. So Larry says, honestly, it makes him dizzy chasing the shiny object in the room. Well, the shiny object in the room to me, as I like to think of it as, is the one that's up the most percentage-wise, but the one that also has like the crazy spread, the big moves on the 1 minute chart. This could be that type of stock, Larry. Everyone has their own pace. If there's a stock that's just too volatile for you, then just move on, right? And everyone has their own pace. There are stocks that are too volatile for myself to where I'm not going to give it the light of day. The thing is, though, is that, hey, if there's another stock out there that is active and it's trading, just do our best to focus on that. And we're going to at least remove all of the distractions around us, right? So, again, in phase 2, I put a big talking point on the preparation before trading the market open. Last thing that we want to feel is like we're kind of like taking a blindfold off and all of a sudden we're in one of those like big circular, bull pits. You have the bull charging at you all of a sudden. Yeah, I'd rather be prepared for that than unprepared. All right, so let's keep it going, folks. Bunch of emails that came in here. So from Jith asking about DCTH. Had multiple sell icebergs until $6.34, $6.35. Where should his stop loss have been? It depends on the time of your entry, Jith. I don't know where you got in terms of time. Do you have the time in which you got in, like from your trade manager on your journal? Should always just look to give the time and the price of your entry when you look to go over a review with us here. That's all. So, in terms of just the move that this made, I think you'd sent this at 10:30 in the morning, the question. So, if it's prior to 10:30 the time. Okay, so right here, I think he's referring to. At this point, it ended up moving off of 6, and it's before the crazy ass shake that we had right here. So it breaks over 6, which again, I cannot stress to you enough. 585 and 6 were the two big levels we were focused on. When I say big, could that apply to other prices? Yeah, it could. Does that mean that every price is uniformly big? 100 million, thousand, zillion percent not. So that's why I was harping on 585 so much. There was a 95,000 share opening bell print there. What's bigger, 95,000 or 18,000, 17,000? I think we know that answer, right? What's bigger, the 540,000 or whatever I showed from the Delta, just that example earlier here, or the 47,000? This is big normally, but how big is big? So earlier, Jith was more asking about kind of just prior to 10:30. Once it exploded off of 6, you can't just say, all right, 620 is going to be equally as strong as 6 or as 585. This was already trying to make this big breakout off the pre-market resistance here and just run higher. So after it popped above 6, is there a really clear level ahead? If we go all the way back to pre-market here and look at it, I mean, you have a couple lines, but that doesn't necessarily mean they're going to be big, let alone larger than these, right? This is 78,000 in the pre-market at that 585. So on top of the opening print, that's why this was so significant. So once it pops without you and you're not in this trade from where we're calling it out, it's a lot tougher to just jump in. It really is. Because at this point, it's 10 o'clock in the morning. So, hey, maybe there's a little chart level around here, but that doesn't really mean much in the grand scheme if it's not going to show too big volume off of it. So just to jump back really quickly, see what Jith wrote as a follow-up here, perhaps. So I don't see any comment just after. So Jith, if it's in relation to what happened prior to 10:30, there's not really much above 6 that is as strong as what we had prior to it. So I was really looking for this to just run right here as it broke over $6. I was feeling great about it. Once it shook down here, I was scared for my life. I was thinking there was a great chance it would break lower. I'm happy that for the overall time being, it generally maintained above 585. But afterwards, from this point, even as it broke back over 6 here, there's not much from CVP that sticks out around 620, 630, etc. That would be a big level. There truly is not like really much there at all. So even after you had sent that email here at this point, as it's building, once it breaks over 620 and runs here, then maybe once it breaks over this and run, maybe you could potentially use this as a leg of support, but it hasn't pulled back there yet. It looks like it's just going to try and make higher lows from after I got out on this. I'm going to try and jump back in on this trade, just going into a coaching call coming up here, folks. Oh, really good question here. Okay, how about this? I like this one. Popped in from private chat, actually, so I'm going to finish up on email, but really interesting question. All questions are good questions, but I like this one. It's a follow-up to what I had mentioned. Sid was asking this to me just now. In light of what you just said, Josh, when does the phrase see something, say something apply? Love that question because it's not contradictory to what I'd mentioned. What I had mentioned just before is, hey, we don't want to confuse, we don't want to overwhelm all of us here because, hey, if we're already following DCTH and it's actively moving and we're already following other stocks, another one or two that are actively moving, it doesn't benefit us to keep calling out other stocks that may potentially move if we already have our hands full. If we already got our hands full, then why toss more into the wheelhouse there for us? It does us more of a disservice at times compared to doing us that benefit. Now, on the flip side of that, let's say you're kind of just scanning yourself, not making the call out just yet in the room, but you're scanning yourself, and all of a sudden you see a stock that is really running. For instance, IONQ, we did not call out until 10:47 in the morning. I know that because Rich made the call out. I actually searched for it before we started Traders Talk. Rich made the call out on IONQ at the time, 10:47 Eastern. So he didn't call it out as it was like just kind of meddling around doing nothing here, right? He called it out after it already was like breaking the highs and making a more convincing move. Once it made a more convincing move, then he said, okay, then it's more worth our time to our students. And hey, this is at 10:46, 10:47, not necessarily at 9:30, 9:35 in the morning. So, hey, if there's really nothing we're following during the good time of the day and you see something making a better move, that's more appropriate to say, hey, Josh, turn over to this for a second. Look at this. There's not much really moving right now, and I see this here. Compared to, hey, it's 9:35 in the morning, 9:40. Regardless of myself, I can care less if it's Josh doing the meeting. I have zero ego and could care any less. Let's say if it's Fausto, 35-year pro, doing this. every single day, every single week, every single month of the year outside of when he's in Bermuda. For you to just start looking at a completely different stock compared to what a 35-year pro is advocating for you to potentially look at, why? Why? That's my question. If there is a legitimate reason, then I'd say perfect. Then follow that stock. But hey, if Fausto's doing this each and every day, and he's driving the ship here, and much more often than not, he's on point with navigating the ship, it doesn't make sense for someone to just yank the captain off from their collar and say, "Hey, captain, look at this." So that's where I say, hey, if nothing is moving and we're kind of in no man's land here, and you see something looking good, please call it out. But like prime time trading, we're already on one or two beautiful moves from our list. It doesn't make us, it doesn't help us out as much as one would think, because you might have a trader turnover to that stock. Granted, it might be a decent call out, but if they are not as prepared to trade that stock as they are the stock that we're all looking at here, well, not only do they miss that move and the stock goes up without them, but now they're on a stock that they need to readjust towards and say, all right, well, where are the levels for this trade? Is this going to make the big run? I do that oftentimes. It's not a bad thing to do, but in terms of being on the ball as much as you can be, well, we all get to our desk at 7:30 in the morning, 8:30 in the morning, no later than 9 o'clock Eastern. That's where it all begins. So if there is a stock that you're looking at there in pre-market and you're led to believe at some point throughout the morning it's going to make a good move for you to jump in on, let's not get ourselves overwhelmed. That's all. That's all I say. All right, we're going to keep going, though. We got a couple more questions just coming in. I do have to just jump onto a call with one of our new students, Christine, coming up. So really quick, folks, just going to bang out these last few emails that came in. So Ryan, we're going to try and get this as efficient as possible. Question 1, can we know when hedge fund traders are intentionally trying to shake us out of trades before they make a big run up? I would base it just off the levels that you're focused on, like the big levels that we're looking at from Bookmap. And to me, this is where I can go into this one setup here. On the DCTH, when it shook me out on my original trade from 540, it took me out right here on the last half of my position. Well, it seems like that was meant to shake traders out, right? It seems like it, because look at after the fact. Was I thinking about that before it shook me out on the last half? Not in the sense of like market makers or hedge fund traders trying to screw us or do one over on us. No, but I just, in the back of my head, know that that's happening all the time. There's no program, there's no algorithm that we have that can tell you where market makers are shaking traders out. But it's in the sense of the big levels that we're using to say, okay, well, hey, if this is such a big level, then we should get a pretty decisive move. When I got stopped out on the second half of my position here, I was thinking, hey, there's a great chance this just tanks. Like on this bar, I was thinking, a good chance this tanks now. That's it. I didn't move on to another stock, though. And that is where I'm led to say, okay, don't move on from the stock right away. Give it just a little space. Just watch it. If it really tanks right away after, then you move on. But if it's just lingering under your level a little bit there, it leaves you to open up the question of, why is it still lingering there? Shouldn't have it tanked already? And then you say, oh, wait a second. What if they're trying to shake traders out from that 85? All right. How do you determine which stock should have a break-even stop loss versus a stock with a 5-cent stop loss? How much are you up already on the day, Ryan? Because if you have a cushion underneath you already, then I say, okay, well, hey, I could play better defense now, and like I can just take a trade break even. It's not going to put a frown on my face because I'm already up my cushion money. So a lot of it is based on perspective. If I hit my day's pay already, I'm not trying to give a lot of that back. I'll risk money on one trade here or there. And if I'm wrong, I'm wrong. If I keep losing like that, then I'll either trade less or I'll just play tighter defense and make my trades to break even, if anything. So if I shake out and don't make the 15, 20 cents of unrealized profit I could have, at least I'm not going to take an L. At least I'm not going to take a loss. So let's just say, for instance, once a stock is already above my big level and it's running and running and running, I mean, DCTH, I certainly would not have let drop all the way back down to 585, right? So even though it shook back up after I yanked my trade, it's just that if we were watching this together at this stage, it's moving up over 6, that's where I'd say, okay, well, let me move my stop up higher now. I'll move my stop up to under 6 and say, you know what? Okay, at minimum, I'll make like 12, 13 cents on the trade. And if that happens, then so be it. I mean, that's literally what happened at 585, actually, because after this massive shake back down, I said, shoot, let me raise my stop up right now. And I raised it to under 585. So it's based on feel oftentimes, as far as just, do I really want to lose on this trade, or do I want to give back all of this money? Let me raise my stop up a little bit there. Finally, 3, do you recommend increasing the stop loss as stocks run to lock in profits? Bingo, bango. Just answered that right there. I tell you, folks, I read these questions live in the moment. I barely have time to prep for Traders Talk. So you're really getting like a straight shoot every time here. I tell you, I don't have time to see these questions as they pop up live. Like, I knew I had a question from Ryan, a question from Jith, Kath, and Larry. I didn't go into these emails really, though, before we started. All right, so Brian N had a few that came in. I'll try and run through these really quick. So Brian says that he needs to familiarize himself to the very rapid pace of our trading room. He's going to give it a good try. And basically, he's done some paper trading so far, added trailing stops per Xavier, one of our students' suggestions. And that's a good suggestion. Hey, Xavier is one of our newer students joining us, but he made a great suggestion with a trailing stop earlier. We have all the time in class to go through stops and risk management. So I'll say in phase 2, we have a lot more chance to do it there, but you always need to set a stop on every trade that you take. So again, I'll kind of use my corny joke here since we have some new students joining us here. So for Brian and Xavier and any of our new students joining us here, I see Robert joining us as well today and a few more. Let me ask you, do you put your seatbelt on? Do you put your seatbelt on as you leave your driveway? Or do you put your seatbelt on as you're already down the expressway 65 to 70 miles per hour? Let me know. What do you do? No matter what, you should be putting that seatbelt on before you're driving, right? So with saying that, as soon as you jump into any trade, you should look to set a stop up. To each their own on trailing stop. I don't use them, but that's just, I never felt fond of setting it up quick enough. But if you yourself have great experience using it, then I'm never telling you to change your habits there. That's it's a great tool to use a trailing stop in general. Other questions from Brian also in relation to setting stops. So Brian, I don't like pushing questions off. I really don't. We're finishing up Traders Talk coming up in a second, running 10 minutes overtime here. As a new student, folks, please, if you have access to the phase 2 stock course, I'd suggest for you to go through the phase 2 stock course. The classes that we conducted in May will go over everything that you need to know about risk management and setting up stops. It's a full 60+ minute lecture on setting stops in general there. I will say for Brian, though, if anything, new students in general, I will just say, certainly, regardless of stock price, as a new student, it's best for you to trade small shares to begin. Hey, if you have, let's say, 2,000 in your account, let's say if you have 2 million in your account, you're going to get the same answer from me and Fausto every time. As a new student, you should be trading maybe like 100 shares a pop, and that's it. Even if it's $1 stock, 100 shares, that's like peanuts, for making money, right? But you need to learn how to follow like Brian had mentioned previously, how rapid some of these stocks could move and the pace of the room. So that's why you hear me say here and in class so much, my biggest point of emphasis is preparation before the market opens and preparation before you risk on a trade. So from our watch list, hey, are there any stocks that are moving at a good pace for you? Not too fast, not the shiny object in the room, but something that is moving good and steady and, in a direction. All right, well, from there, where are our key levels? Where are the big icebergs out there? as far as support resistance. So really quick. So, as far as that goes, that's where we're going to be able to at least prepare better, knowing where the big levels are. And hey, if the stock moves up without you and you're watching, it makes a sudden pop breakout and it's going without you, I need to let you know, as a new student, get used to it. Because right now it's like kind of like being up at like the plate if you're following baseball and you're playing in an MLB game and you have, a pitcher throwing a 100-mile-per-hour fastball down the middle at you. Well, I feel like you're going to be better to react to that pitch if you learn how to react to a slower pitch first, right? Before you learn how to hit the 100-mile-per-hour fastball, you got to learn how to hit the 85-mile-per-hour fastball. Before the 85-mile-per-hour fastball, you got to learn how to consistently hit the 60-mile-per-hour knuckleball. Before that, you got to learn how to play T-ball. Don't tell me I'm wrong, because I know I'm right. So that's where I say, as a trader, as a new student, we don't want you to be trading the shiny object in the room. We want you to be feeling confident and comfortable with what you're looking at. And it comes with time. It comes with time. So you're going to miss out on a couple trades because they're going to move quicker than you think. And the more that you're with us, you're going to learn how to develop that reaction. This will be easy to say, the following. So what we have to do our best to do is learn how to think less and just do more. Don't worry about the maybes, what ifs. Oh my God. Focus on where the big level is. Where's our big level? Is the stock breaking through a big level on the way up? And once we jump in, are we setting our stops? Most importantly, that's what matters most there, because you might have a good trade on your hands, but if it starts off good, but then comes back, it's going to make a big move just the other way. So if we're not prepared to eat a break-even trade or take a small loss, then that's where we become a lot more discouraged after the fact. We get our ass kicked on a trade and we say, oh, shoot, is this worth trying to do going forward? Well, there's a process about it, folks. And of course, we're going to take a couple of losses, a few losses more so than initially to begin compared to down the line. That's why we want you to be trading small shares. So the risk is not too great at first. You learn how to take a couple bruises, a couple cuts at first, and that's it. We learn how to prevent those cuts later on. Folks, we're going to finish up right now. Hey, I have to jump onto a few calls with a few of our gold students that recently joined CTU here. So for Aaron, Brian, Sydney, Larry, and a few more of us, I know I have to get back through email to a couple of us. Phil, namely yourself, I want to wish you and your family well. I'm going to get back to you through email, Phil. I just saw your email right now. So wishing Phil and his family the best, actually. His daughter and husband live in Lahaina, Hawaii, which is basically right around that area, right? They both escaped the fire when it was near their condo development. Phil just wrote me that right now. So Phil, my wishes are with your family. My prayers and everything are with your family. I wish you the best, and your daughter and her husband. I'll talk to you on the side. I definitely want to get an update from you on that. All right. But hey, folks, just hey, I'll be back on the mic later on this afternoon at 2:30 p.m. for the afternoon meeting. If you're joining us on social media, Facebook Live, LinkedIn, etc., I hope that you enjoyed. But if you're looking to learn more, much like one of our attendees were earlier, how about that? Black Beauty Machine. I love that comment from them before. I actually wrote this, said, amazing how the channels that give the most information barely have any views. We are on the up and up there, Black Beauty. We look to have you join us. We look to see you join us inside our live trading room. Just scan that QR code on the top left of the stream right there. And we'll catch back with you later on this afternoon. All right, folks, take care.